flex. Buckle up and join the best. Let Citi relieve your stress. So yes, let the music soothe your soul and keep it going just to refresh. Buckle and enjoy the ride from 2 to the half of the 5. Mondays to Fridays happening live. Where we gon' have a ball, you can text your guys. Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the traffic avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the traffic avenue.
Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, the Traffic Avenue. Traffic Avenue, the show for me and you. Mondays to Fridays, ooh, Traffic Avenue, oh yeah.
Guys, let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. Are you ready for the traffic avenue? Let me tell you what you really gotta do. You can count on us, we come through. We got everything you need, that's true. An applause for the traffic avenue.
Traffic Avenue.
Detailed news, unparalleled coverage. City News on 97.3 FM.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
City
News. It's 17:30 GMT. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. I am Umaru, Sanda, Amadu. And tonight I'm here with
Akosua, Otchere.
And coming up over the next 90 minutes, we take you to the Ken Oforiatta Committee in Parliament, where a revelation has been maintained by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, that some $100 million of Ghana's revenues were paid in the wrong accounts, or were not paid in the right accounts, contrary to law. Also, coming up, we'll tell you about the Attorney General's reservations and objections to the Anti-LGBTQI bill currently before Parliament. The Honorable Godfred Yeboah-Dame maintains that if the bill is passed in its current forms, it may infringe on the rights and freedoms of persons, and that is Ghanaians. And later, on Eyewitness News, you remember the woman in Takoradi who faked her pregnancy and her kidnapping? Well, the court has decided her fate today, and there's an appropriate punishment that has been handed down on that lady. We'll be touching base with the Western Regional Capital for more on that story. Stay with 97.3 CTFM for more on this and many other stories on Eyewitness News. And in business,
Ghana Chamber of Construction Industry calls for transparency in the sale of government's housing projects.
That's in 50 minutes. Eyewitness News is live across Ghana on a number of affiliate stations, including in the Upper West region on Tumpani Radio 88.5 in Nadoli, in Upper East region on Rekas 92.1 FM in Bongo, Namo. In the Northern region, we are on North Star Radio 92.1 FM in Tamale. In Northeast region, we are on Nobia FM 98.1 in Nalerugo. In the Western region, we are on Beach 105.5 FM in Takrady. If you go to the Ashanti region, we are live on Focus 94.3 FM on the campus of the KNUST, as well as Orange 107.9 FM in Kumasi. In the Volta region, we are live on Sela Radio 97.1 in Dabala and Holy FM 98.5 FM. The show is interactive. You can join us on WhatsApp. The number is 0549 986 996. 0549 986 996. You can send tweets using the hashtag Citi. You can also go onto our Facebook live feed. Drop your comments on the comment section. The world will hear. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3. There's a committee that has been set up in Parliament to hear Ken Oforiatta, the Minister of Finance. That committee of the House is supposed to make a determination and present that determination to the House on that controversial vote of censure motion brought against the minister by the minority and objected to by the majority. Now, the committee has started hearing. On Monday, when it sat, it heard from the persons who brought the petition, namely the minority leader and the ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament. They made their presentations to the committee, and this happened in the presence of Ken Oforiatta, the Minister of Finance, and his lawyer, Gabi Asari Otchere. After that, the minister requested for some more time for the lawyer to peruse the documents that were presented and other information in order that they can come and respond appropriately. This is scheduled to return tomorrow at 10 o'clock for that hearing to continue. However, the allegations that have been brought against the minister, 7 counts that have been listed, or 7 issues that have been listed, include one that borders on the non-payment of Ghana's revenues into an appropriate account. That became a subject of discussion, for which reason the committee decided to invite key players in the petroleum downstream and upstream sector to solve that particular. And that's where our story from Parliament starts off today. Akosua.
In our first story, the Public Interest Accountability Committee, PIAC, has confirmed an amount of $100 million withdrawn by the government has yet been refunded. The minority in Parliament accused the finance minister of illegally making payments of oil revenues into offshore accounts as part of the basis for essential under the government refunds $100 million transferred Limited, a subsidiary of the Ghana National Petroleum. Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee, probing essential motion, the Vice Chairman of PIAC, Nasir Alpha Mohammed, says efforts made towards retrieving the funds.
Chairman, the committee did not rest. We wrote to the GRA, both the GRA and the Ministry for Finance, for responses on this issue. Chairman, in his written response to PIAC on the matter, the Ghana Revenue Authority referred the committee to the Ministry of Finance, indicating that the ministry was exclusively in charge of the transaction. And the Ministry of Finance, in turn, referred the committee to the Ghana Revenue Authority for answer. They referred you to this. Yes, Mr. Chairman, actually, what happened is the way we do our reporting. Ultimately, we had a validation meeting of all the Ministry for Finance and GRA, including all other stakeholders. What was the outcome? The outcome was that the letters spoke for themselves.
Alpha Mohammed is the Vice Chairman of the Public Interest Accountability Committee.
This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We are coming to you from our studios in Adabraka. Dr. Steve Mantio is chairman of Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas. He's also the chairman of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, right? And of course, we remember him with PIAC. Doc, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you very much.
What is this Petroleum Holding? Is it fund? Is that the name of the fund?
Yes, the name of the fund is Petroleum Holding Fund.
Okay, what is it about, first of all?
Right. It is a repository for all petroleum revenues derived from petroleum activity. It was established purposely so as not to commingle petroleum revenues with the general pool of funds that accrue to government and to enable proper tracking and accounting for petroleum revenues in this country. So you find that we have a Public Financial Management Act, which actually governs the management and utilization of all public financial resources. But the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which actually established the Petroleum Holding Fund, makes petroleum revenue an exception from the general pool of funds that actually are available to government.
So at the end of the year, everything we raise from cocoa, from the road sector, from every sector is put in the consolidated fund. However, when it comes to revenue from petroleum, we put it in this special account.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, before I ask you about the controversy around that, Public Interest Accountability Committee, PIAC, is that a creation of Parliament or it's a private group that monitors our petroleum sector?
It is a statutory body, a creation of law, Act 815 of 2011, subsequently amended in 2015. So it's a creation of Parliament.
So PIAC is
by law.
PIAC is a petroleum watchdog.
That is correct.
And is recognized by law, by Parliament, the executive, and everybody.
That is correct.
Okay. Is PIAC
let me add that PIAC came about as a result of a loss of public confidence in the oversight functions of Parliament. So when we discovered oil, the citizens resolved that on this occasion, they were not going to leave the management of petroleum revenues entirely in the care of politicians. That we, the citizens, want to be part of the arrangement for managing and using petroleum revenue. And so we assigned this oversight function. We support, PIAC is supposed to support Parliament in the execution of Parliament's oversight function.
So PIAC, is it a bipartisan committee or you are not political at all?
It is apolitical. It is drawn from all shades of civil society groups in the country. So you have the Trade Union Congress, you have the Ghana Bar Association, you have the Chartered Institute of Accountants, you have the Ghana Journalists Association, you have the Ghana Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, you have the Queen Mothers Association, you have the, the Chieftaincy Institution also represented. So all shades of civil society groupings in Ghana actually constitute PIAC.
So PIAC then becomes our most respected authority on how our petroleum funds are being managed. And so if PIAC makes a statement, that statement should be very authoritative.
Exactly, because they do not pander to political manipulations and political instincts. They are all apolitical groups who have only one thing in common, the interest of the state.
Good. Now let's talk about what PIAC has found, for which reason it was contained in the memorandum of issues that was brought before the Committee of Parliament by the petitioners against the Minister of Finance. It appears that there's some $100 million that PIAC talked about, which formed the basis. Can you tell us what that problem is?
Right. The Petroleum Exploration and Production Act and the Petroleum Revenue Management Act recognize two forms of that's when I say our, Ghana's participation in its own petroleum industry. The first is what we call carried interest. Carried interest is the interest that the state acquires but does not pay anything for it by virtue of the fact that we are the resource owner. The minimum now, according to an amendment of the law, is 15%. So we can be entitled to a minimum of 15% carried interest. Now, then there is what you call the participating interest. That is an additional interest that we acquire and we pay for. So, for instance, in the case of Oxy is a company that acquired a company that was in Ghana's petroleum sector, was present in the Jubilee field and the 10 field, and it was owned by Anadako. So Anadako decided to sell its assets to Oxy. So Oxy acquired Anadako, and by virtue of that fact, Oxy became the owner of Anadako's stake in Jubilee and 10. Then Oxy took a decision to wind up its interest in Africa, and which then includes Ghana. So in that process, Oxy offered its stake for sale, and Tullow Oil eventually exercised preemption rights and bought the stake. But in that transaction, some 7% was allocated to Ghana for Ghana expressed interest in acquiring that interest. And so the 7% what was assigned to Ghana should go to GMPC, because GMPC is the company that represents Ghana in the upstream sector. Now, that 7% must be paid for. It is not too clear how that 7% was paid for. The Ministry of Finance, following the PIAC report, raising issues about the transaction, has come out to say that the monies, the 7% was paid for through a loan that the ministry allocated to GMPC. Now, if that is the case, then one would want to see a loan agreement. But I doubt there is any such loan agreement. And so I would have expected that the committee looking into that matter will look in that direction, first and foremost. The Ministry of Finance is not supposed to be in the business of granting loans. And it does not have authority over spending public resources. The entity that has authority to grant approval for the expenditure of public resources is Parliament. So if at any time the Minister of Finance decides that he wants to engage in any expenditure, including the granting of loans, it has to go to Parliament for approval. My check does not indicate or does not confirm that the Ministry of Finance went to Parliament to seek that approval. Again, there was capital gain tax that arose from the transaction, which GRA should collect. PIAC check, so far as I know, from GRA indicates that GRA was not involved in the transaction and therefore could not say or provide any information on the transaction. Now, fast forward, GMPC set then, with the support help of Oxy, set up a company in offshore by name JOHL and allocates the 7% to JOHL. The laws of this country does not know JHL. We know GMPC. And it is GMPC that the laws of this country appointed as the custodian of our interest in upstream petroleum. So if GMPC sets up a vehicle and allocates the money, it is GMPC we go to take our money. Now, GMPC is saying that we have given that money to a company we established, subsidiary, and therefore we do not have to comply with the legal provision that requires us to deposit all revenue from the petroleum activities, either generated directly or indirectly, into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Just because they say JOHL is an independent entity from GMPC. But indeed, GMPC was the one that acquired and transferred our 7% to JOHL. So we don't know JOHL, we know GMPC, and the law requires of GMPC to deposit all revenues it generates in respect of its custodian right over our hydrocarbons into the Petroleum Holding Fund. And so, if PIAC is saying that some monies or some oil has been lifted in respect of the 7%, and that they did not find that money in the Petroleum Holding Fund, then it means the law that the Petroleum Revenue Management Act has been breached by the minister and GMPC. Because it is the minister's responsibility to ensure that the proceeds from the lifting were paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund.
Okay, now to simplify the language, that 7% is what has become the controversial issue.
Exactly.
But it does not mean necessarily that as a country we have lost or we cannot find our $100 million. Our $100 million is there, except that it's not at our GMPC. It's with a company created by GMPC. So there's the money, all right, but it didn't go through the appropriate route, and that is a bone of contention.
Exactly, and the fact that the law has been broken by those who put the money in an account other than what is specified in Act 815.
So the law cannot be, bended in any way so that if the money is supposed to go in account A, it must go in that account and nowhere else.
No, if you want to do that, then you have to go and amend the law to make an exemption of
But
such situation.
Can't you say
But the law does not make any exemption.
You can't say that JOHL is an extension of GMPC, and for that matter, the accounts can work together, considering that the JOHL is holding that money in trust for GMPC. Is that not the same GMPC we have essentially paid the money into?
Even if that were the case, then indeed the law requires GMPC to deposit their proceeds from its lifting to the tune of about 100 million into the Petroleum Holding Fund. So either way you look at it, it doesn't sit well within the law.
Okay, GMPC's defense has been that what? For instance, today the staff who appeared before the committee explained that the director for JHO Limited is the CEO. Is it CEO at GMPC? The title is what? CEO. Now, if the director of this company is the boss at RGMPC and means that he's a signatory to the account, then it means we haven't lost our money, and that could be the same vehicle, just an offshoot of GMPC, isn't it?
Yes, the money is not lost, but it is for a good reason that the law requires that all petroleum revenue should be deposited into one account so that it can be tracked. Now, if you begin to set bad precedents, putting petroleum revenues in several other accounts created by GMPC or any entity, chances are that you may not be able to track all your petroleum revenue.
All right. Did the explanation from the GMPC to the committee make sense to you, though?
I did not have the benefit of listening to the explanation, but I've been aware of GMPC's position on this matter for a very long time. Look, we are all pretenders, both government, GMPC, and all those who know what the problem is. The problem we are dealing with today is that GMPC needs revenue recognition in its books. And it is trying all manner of ways to achieve that. You know, if you look at the GMPC Statute of Establishment, PNDC Law 64, it actually provides that GMPC's operations will be funded exclusively from the capital market. That GMPC is to go borrow, invest in its activities, make money to cover its operations, its salaries, and pay dividends to the state. PNDC Law 64 did not provide that GMPC will be given allocations from petroleum revenue. However, when we formulated the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, we inserted this provision with a sunset clause that up until 2026, GMPC will be financed from petroleum revenue allocation. Now, GMPC on several occasions has made the point that, look, if at any point in our life cycle, we are going to have to be on our own and finance our own operations, then give us revenue recognition, which means GMPC wants to lift petroleum, sell the petroleum, and route the money through its account so that its account will show that indeed it receives revenue in the form of from sales of petroleum products or crude oil. And that in itself then forms the basis upon which it can go borrow on the open market. So on a particular occasion, a couple of years ago, I think 4 years ago, GMPC sold crude oil and deposited it in its account. This came to the attention of the Ministry of Finance, and they directed GMPC to move the money immediately into the Petroleum Holding Fund, and GMPC complied. On this occasion, GMPC is being smart by not holding on to the money in its own account, by setting up a subsidiary and depositing the money in the subsidiary account and claiming that it is a separate entity. It's a legal entity, a corporate entity with its own board of directors and all that. And therefore, the monies that have been put into the JOHL account will be accounted for, and GMPC will receive dividends, which it will then pay into the Petroleum Holding Fund. That is wrong interpretation of the law.
Okay. In all of these, there's another leg called Exploco.
Yeah.
Can you connect that one to the general discussion we've had tonight for me?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I led a kind of a campaign and I engaged GMPC authorities in a way to get them to see how we can dilute the ownership of GMPC such that we'll be able to reduce the political interferences and control at GMPC. In my discussions with the leadership of GMPC, my attention was drawn to the fact that our laws vest our hydrocarbons in GMPC. I mean the reserves in GMPC. So if you were taking GMPC to the stock market, as I suggested at the time, then it means that anybody who buys into GMPC will automatically become an owner of our hydrocarbon reserves. And that wasn't going to serve the interest of the country. So the way to do or to kind of dilute ownership and control would be to set up a commercial vehicle in the form of what eventually became known as Exploco. So that Exploco in future becomes a commercial entity that we may want to take to the stock exchange to raise funds. And anybody who buys into Exploco buys into that independent corporate entity called Exploco and not GMPC. And so in that way, then Exploco becomes a commercial vehicle for value maximization for Ghana, but owned by GMPC.
If this
Somehow,
one... Okay.
as I speak,
Go ahead.
As I speak, Exploco exists only on paper. It has no staff. It has no office. In fact, it is supposedly situated within GMPC, but they don't even have a desk. We need to get serious as a country and do things properly.
If this 100 million was paid into the Exploco account, would the narrative have been different?
If it were paid into the Exploco account, that would be petroleum revenue generated indirectly. That is not generated directly by GMPC, but indirectly through a proxy company. It would still mean that the proceeds of the lifting should be deposited in the Petroleum Holding Fund.
Very well.
The law says that revenue generated directly or indirectly.
Very well. I think we can leave it here. Thank you, and we'll follow the story and get the response from the minister. He's scheduled to come and give responses to the committee tomorrow. We'll wait for that, and then we can possibly call you back for more. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome, sir.
That's Dr. Steve Mantiel. Dr. Steve Mantiel is chairman of the Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas. He's also the chairman on the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, EITI. And we also remember him as the chairman of PIAC, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, that is, which was before the Committee of Parliament today, that is probing the charges brought against Ken Ofori-Atta, Minister of Finance. Theo Echampong is an economist and political risk analyst, and he has written a response to what has happened today. Let me just read that for you from his Facebook post. And he says, Honorable Katie Hammond, the position of the law, that's the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, and others is clear. GMPC erred by putting oil monies into Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited instead of first depositing them into the Petroleum Holding Fund. This argument about JOHL being a subsidiary of GMPC doesn't even arise. It is moot. Exploco, another subsidiary of GMPC, has some of its finances coming from GMPC Level B financing. I wish I could school Katie and the ad hoc committee on this, GMPC Ed, period. So that is a perspective that has come through from him, and this is just coming on the line of some other views you're getting. Let's hear from the rest of you. Nam Zakali in Gushau says, I can't think far with issues that are unfolding from the ad hoc committee. Alex Kofi Yarini in Adenta says, it is not surprising to hear that financial irregularities occurred during Konoforiata's era, and more can be among reasons why he will not resign. Zylis Dwayne in London says, so why does Ken Oforiatta want to go through his process of grilling and humiliation instead of honorably resigning? Hashtag Ken must go. Yogu Na says, good evening to you, Sanda. The finance minister should be bold and resign as a minister. Baba Chairman in Tamale says, all blame is at the doorstep of the president for not heeding to the council by sacking Ken. Alan in Chantan says, congrats to PIAC for the good work. This is one of the very few institutions we can trust in this country. You can also send your message 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996. Alternatively, you can go on Facebook and also on YouTube, where we are actually bringing you this live broadcast. So we are live on YouTube and on Facebook, and drop your comments there. Eyewitness News returns in a bit. Please stay.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.
Alande, me say, Alande.
Adepen Alande.
Gonna pay Alande.
Hey, fine.
Pay bills, buy airtime and data, transfer money in and out of your bank account, and so much more with Ghana Pay. Dial *707# to register for Ghana Pay, or download the Ghana Pay app from the Play Store or App Store.
Alande. Ghana pay Alande.
Ghana Pay, your money, your way.
This service is powered by Gibbs.
We're sorry to interrupt this program for a breaking news story. Information reaching us is that the whole country has been thrown into a state of joy and excitement about the new look of Total Energies lubricants. Our correspondent Kwame Owusu is standing by to bring us the very latest developments. Kwame, what exactly is the situation where you are?
Emmanuel, I must say there's a huge crowd here, with drivers and customers extremely excited about the new Total Energies lubricants bottle. I have with me here one of the drivers. Hello, boss.
Yes,
you are live on Quartz 202.1 FM. Tell us the reason for your joy.
My name is War, and for 10 years, I use only Total Energies lubricants for efficiency and performance of my car engine. With a new bottle, it's easier to read, carry, and pour. New bottle design and color, new label, new cap, and security features with a QR code. Massa is the same superior oil quality. Challenge, this is performance at bedside.
So you heard it right. Total Energies lubricants bottle have been entirely redesigned into a modern and premium pack to give you the best experience. Reporting live from the capital, this is Kwame Owusu.
Quartz, keep your engine younger for longer.
But why all this laughter?
Kwaku gave me 6,000 cedis for shopping for some electrical appliances.
Yes. What about that?
I came home with exactly what he ordered, and I still had 3,000 Ghana cedis on me.
Wow. But it's only NASCO offering this promotion this season.
Of course, yes. It's NASCO. You think you are the only one who knows NASCO brings home happiness? He's been wondering why I don't ask him for money after the shopping.
That's 50% discount power. This season, a NASCO massive discount and It's NASCO new promo. What are you waiting for? This season, we are offering massive discounts up to 50%. Yes, on selected items from NASCO.
Call 0242 439 437. NASCO, bring home happiness.
Let your voice be heard on Eyewitness News on Facebook at facebook.com/Citi97.3, Twitter at twitter.com/Citi973, and Instagram at instagram.com/Citi973 with the hashtag Eyewitness News.
You're welcome back to Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. We are broadcasting from our studios in Adabraka in Accra. My name is Umaru, Sanda. Amadu here tonight with Akosua, Otchere. You remember that bill that was sponsored by some members of Parliament to the House of Parliament, wanting that a law be enacted on what they call the promotion of proper sexual human values in Ghana. Well, that law or that bill has been put before a committee that has been working on it. The work has stalled for a while. We do not know, at least the ones that we see publicly. However, there is a part of bills where memoranda will be sent and also there will be legal advice to be given. The chief government legal advisor is the Minister for Justice and Attorney General. And now the Attorney General has written a comment that he has sent to the committee doing the work or the House of Parliament on this particular bill. He raises a number of objections in relation to what has been contained or what is contained in that particular draft bill. So tonight, to help us do analysis of what the Attorney General is saying, we brought in Sixtus Don Ulo. He is a producer of Eyewitness News and is also here in the Citi newsroom. Sixtus, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Sanda.
So the Attorney General's input, of course, is almost like government's position on the bill that is before the House, because this bill was not brought by the government, right?
No, this is a private member bill.
Okay. So what's the Attorney General saying?
This is an 18-page memo that he has served on the committee that is considering this. And there are some salient points that he's made. But we can start straight away with the title of the bill itself. You'd recall that the bill is titled The Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values, 2021. And he says that the use of the word proper in the title in itself is inappropriate because it connotes some subjectivity. He also takes issue with the use of the word Ghanaian and says that it's not necessary, as a bill passed in Ghana necessarily talks or relates to Ghana. But let me talk about some of the more substantive issues that he's raised in his memo. The first one would be the question of human rights. And I'm going to read directly from page 3 of the memo that he has served on the committee. It says that the bill, whilst recognizing these rights, that's to talk about fundamental human rights as recognized under the 1992 Constitution, seeks to place a fetter on conduct considered against the norms and values of society to be inimical to the public interest, safety, and morality. The bill, whilst recognizing rights, seeks to place a fetter on conduct considered against the norms and values of society to be inimical to the public interest, safety, and morality. That's point number 1.
Okay.
Point number 2, he says that the bill repeats provisions that are already existing in within the legal framework or architecture of the country, and he makes reference to specifically to the Marriages Act 1884 to 1885, Cap 127. He talks about the Criminal Offences Act 1960. He talks about the Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Act 1960 and the Children's Act. So the point here is that if you go through these legislations that he's mentioned, you would find some provisions of this bill that are also in these legislations. So which one would take precedent over the other? That is where they conflict. The third important point he mentions is the financial obligation. You would recall that the Constitution stands against bills that are introduced by private member bill with financial implications, because the executive is the body that is in charge of expenditure. So if you, a private member, brings a bill that would compel government to expend on the public purse, then there may be a problem with that. So the point made in this memo is that, and I'm reading him directly, I am of the view that the bill may hold financial implications for the state, particularly regarding the collective responsibility of citizens, educational institutions, executive, legislature, and judiciary to promote the values enshrined in the bill under Clause 3 of the bill. So those are some of the salient concerns that he raised on the bill as we know it.
He talks also about even the name of the bill, doesn't he? If you look at the opening part of the critique that he wrote.
Yes, I mentioned that he pointed out a word there, the use of the word proper in the short title. And if you look at the title, it says Promotion of Proper Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. That's the bill, that's the title of the bill as it is before the House. So the argument the Attorney General makes is that if you use the word proper in the title, it connotes some subjectivity. And so it would be inappropriate to use the word proper in this particular context. And again, let me read this directly from the memo we have. This would reflect the object of the bill to set out the sexual rights and family values of the country. A bill inherently promotes the provisions contained therein. Thus, the phrase promotion of is not necessary. So, looking at the title alone, he said, number one, the use of the word Ghanaian is not necessary because already the law is made for Ghanaians, so there's no need to bring that in. Number two, the use of the phrase promotion of is also not necessary because, of course, obviously, it is to promote something. And the use of the word proper, he says, is also inappropriate.
Take me to the conclusions. He has given conclusions that he advises the House of Parliament to consider. What are those?
The first one, he says that Chapter 5 of the Constitution guarantees the fundamental human rights and freedoms of every person. These rights are to be upheld and respected by the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, and all organs of government and its agencies, and all natural and legal persons. Aspects of the bill in its current form may violate some fundamental rights and freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, including the right to freedom of expression, thought, and conscience, and freedom from discrimination. Those are specific. Again, some provisions of the bill repeat existing legislation, particularly the Marriages Act, the Criminal Offences Act, Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Act, and the Children's Act. Number 3, unnatural carnal knowledge of a person with or without the consent of that person, and unnatural carnal knowledge of an animal is already criminalized by Act 29. The bill seeks to state a broader prohibition on unnatural carnal knowledge or criminalization of sexual intercourse between persons of the same sex. This does not appear to be inconsistent with the Constitution. And he also goes on to talk about the restrictions on the dissemination of certain kinds of information directed at children are not inconsistent with the Constitution. The prohibition on adoption, fosterage, and marriage between persons of same sex placed by clauses 17 and 18 of the bill are not inconsistent with the Constitution. Finally, and that will be paragraph 8.
Okay, so I have a difficulty understanding the point 7. When it says are not inconsistent, it means they are consistent.
They are consistent.
So what does that mean? The prohibition on adoption, fosterage, and marriage between persons of the same sex placed by clause 17 and 18 of the bill are not
inconsistent with the Constitution.
What does that mean?
Part of the job of this memo is to see whether the bill would raise any constitutional concerns.
Okay.
So if the bill were to be passed, are there any provisions in it that would contravene, conflict with the provisions of the 1992 Constitution, which is the supreme law?
So it means he's giving 17 and 18 a pass.
A pass.
It can go.
They are not inconsistent with the
Thank you for
Constitution.
that understanding. Number 8 is what you were going to state.
Yes, that attention is drawn to the possible implementation challenges likely to be faced after the bill is passed. Some provisions, when implemented, will violate some fundamental human rights and freedoms, particularly the right to privacy. So if you have checked the rights that we talked about, this would be like the 4th or so. It talks about, I'm just trying to quickly pull that up. It talks about the right to privacy. In the other provision that we looked at, it talks about the right to expression, freedom of expression, against discrimination and other ones.
Okay.
That all these rights
would be
infringed upon if the bill is passed.
Thank you. Six Uzonwolo with the Citi Newsroom here, producer of Eyewitness News. Samonate George is NDC Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. He is one of the proponents of the LGBTQI bill. He's joined us on the line now for some quick reactions. Honorable, you're welcome to Eyewitness News. So that's the AG's opinion we just read. What will be your initial comments having heard the issues he's raised?
Let me say very good evening to you and your listeners. But I'm surprised that this has become a subject of public conversation at this time, because this report, this memo from the AG has been with the committee for quite some time. In fact, it was supposed to have been sat on today by the committee and the AG and the sponsors, but for the sitting of the ad hoc committee that Mr. Speaker set up, where both chairman and ranking of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee are members of the ad hoc committee. So I have some difficulty discussing the memo in public when we are going to have it in there. But let me just be clear that we have had a look at the AG's memo, and as sponsors, we're excited about it because the AG largely fundamentally agrees with almost all the aspects of the bill. We take cognizance of the fact that the AG, in drafting his memo, basically, and let me just say that a lot of work has gone on in the quiet. A lot of people have said we've abandoned the fight, but in the last 4-5 months, a lot of work has been going on behind the scenes quietly. And what we realized in working on the AG's memo as sponsors was the fact that the AG was referring to the original version of the bill. But the committee has met with the sponsors, we've had debates, we've done a clause-by-clause consideration. And so the bill has changed to some extent. And some of the things that the AG raises in his memo have already been taken care of in meetings between the sponsors and the committee. And so in the current form that the bill stands, a large chunk of the things that the AG raises in his memo have been dealt with. But we're excited, like I said, about the AG's memo. We're criticized on the ban on marriages and fosterage and adoption, and said that was an infringement on fundamental rights. The AG makes it clear that laws of that nature are consistent with our Constitution. Even when you look at and when you read the AG's memo properly, I mean, it's one thing reading the conclusion. You need to read the memo itself, because in there you will see the meat of the issue. Because I heard Sixtus make reference to rights that the AG suggests, again, and that's the AG's opinion, suggests his opinion is not sacrosanct. It's up for debate. Some rights could be infringed. The AG himself admits in that memo that, and he quotes the Giba case in that memo, in the memo he sent to Parliament. He quotes the Giba versus Attorney General case of 2017, where Benin JSC said that there is nothing like an absolute freedom. The AG himself quotes that in his memo. So the AG is minded that no freedoms are absolute. And again, the AG himself has sponsored a bill, or quite a number of bills to Parliament that we have passed, where he has curtailed fundamental human rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. The right to association. The Attorney General in his Vigilantism Act curtailed that right, the fundamental right. But the Attorney General curtailed that in the public interest and in national security interest. And so the AG himself admits in his memo that there are grounds for rights to be curtailed. And so, yes, he raises rights that could be curtailed. But that's what I'm saying. Don't just read the conclusion. Read the substance of his memo. In his memo, he admits and even cites cases where he has, especially in the Giba versus Attorney General case that he cited, it was on the substance of what appeared to be a gagging of the media when it comes to the propaganda and placing of adverts. You remember our bill places an obligation on media houses not to give platforms for dissemination of pro-LGBTQ material. And in there, he quotes that and says that, yes, even though the media has the freedom of expression, those freedoms are not absolute. And you must do that minded by public health, public morals, public safety, and national security. So I think we're on solid ground. And once we're able sometime next week to have this meeting with the AG and the committee, we should be able to then move on to have our report and then lay it before the rising of the House. Once that is laid, I'm confident that sometime in the next first meeting of next year, that will be between January and April, the proper debate of the bill will happen.
So you're expecting that this bill continues through next year, not necessarily this year, which means by the end of this year, you do not anticipate that it becomes law, or at least you would be done with your work.
It is practically impossible to pass the bill this year. The budget is to be read on Wednesday. And so even if the committee were to meet on Monday, for example, let me just even say we were to meet on Monday, it would take the Secretariat some days to put together their report and then share that with the committee members for their cross-check and verification before it will now come to the table office to be laid. And after it is laid, for the debate to happen on the clause by clause with all the amendments, given the budget sequence, this meeting is a budget meeting. So it's practically impossible for anybody to expect debates on a bill as sensitive as this to happen now. What will happen before, what I'm confident will happen before we rise in December will be that our report, the report of the committee will be laid, and it will be for the consideration of the House, which will then lead us to the debate early next year. I'm confident that before the end of the first meeting of next year, or maximum second meeting of next year, we should have been done with all the clause by clause and amendments that will be filed.
Now, what that means also is that because you have, you said that you have done a lot of work on the bill, and the bill is a work in progress, it means you're making concessions to the points that the AG has raised in there, and you are going to inculcate that, or incorporate that rather, in the bill that you'll be putting before the House, including the name of the bill.
That's not entirely correct. Like I said to you, we have already worked on the bill before the AG's memo came in.
That's what I'm saying. So yes, I'm saying that this work that you have done, does it include what the AG is pointed out now? And I'm not necessarily saying that you are you are preempting the AG of a sort, but I'm just asking if the things the AG has raised are things you have started working on already.
Well, I would say about 80% of the issues that the AG has raised in his memo have already been catered for between the committee and the sponsors. And so and the rest of the issues he has raised, it's not every issue he's raised that we agree with. Let's be very clear on that. There are some of the issues as sponsors we think that the AG is wrong. We are insisting to the committee that we would carry those to the floor and have a debate on that. If the AG feels so strongly, he's welcome to debate us on the floor of the House.
On the issue of financial matters, though, you can't debate it, can you? It is black and white in Article 108.
Well, and that's why I'm saying that the AG's reading of financial matters is actually moot, is dead ab initio. Except the AG is seeking to challenge Mr. Speaker's ruling, and he will do that advisedly and guided by Mr. Speaker's ruling. Mr. Speaker would not have admitted a private member's motion if it frowned on Article 108. And the Speaker was very clear in admitting the motion, where he addressed the House and said that he had sought legal advice, and the Speaker himself is a lawyer of over 3 decades and stellar legal practice. He's convinced that our bill does not frown on Article 108. I am convinced as well that our bill, I mean, like I said, I don't want to go into the details, but for example, the Attorney General says that an imposition of a duty on the executive to inculcate the right cultural norms is infringing on Article 108. And I think that that's the big stretch by the AG, respectfully. The learned Attorney General is fishing when he makes such submissions, because the state has a duty, I think under Article 38 or 39 of the Constitution, to ensure the integration and inculcation of the appropriate cultural values into the fiber of our national being. It's in the Constitution. So those are not new responsibilities that we are giving to the state. Those are responsibilities the Constitution has. If you read I think it's Article 39, so it talks about the cultural aspects of dimensions of our state under the directive principles of state policy, I think chapter 5. It imposes that duty on the state already. So if we repeat a constitutional provision, you can't say that we are giving a new cost element to the state. That's what I'm saying, that we have taken into consideration a lot of the things he's spoken about already.
On the financial matters, the AG says, I'm of the view, and this page 4, I'm of the view that the bill may hold financial implications for the state, particularly regarding, he gives 3 grounds. Let me go to the second ground. He says, the payment for medical assistance or therapy by an approved service provider under subclause 6 of clause 19, clause 20, and clause 23 of the bill. Now, it's almost as if he foresaw the response you would give to say that you defer to the speaker. So he says that a determination of the satisfaction of the conditions in Article 108 ought to be made objectively by the person presiding over proceedings in Parliament on the basis of analysis properly conducted by proponents of any bill in question. That is the AG's viewpoint.
Except the AG is impugning wrong motives in the decision-making of the Speaker, which I respectfully hold the view that the learned Attorney General will not even attempt today to do that to his learned senior, the Right Honourable Abansumani Bagbin, to suggest that the Speaker was not objective in his decision to admit the bill, and I think that, and that's what I'm saying, that if you read the language, he says it may. He that's why I said he may be overreaching, and that's what I'm saying, that a lot of the things he's raised have already been dealt with between us and the committee. In fact, we hold the view that our meeting with the committee on this AG's report wouldn't even last an hour, because most of the things that he's raised are matters that we spend 3 days in Koforidia from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., 12 hours each day for 3 days, non-stop, with the committee, going into the matter, debating them, looking at the merits and the demerits. And quite a number of things have been added and have been dropped from the bill. And that's what I'm saying, that when the final bill is laid before the House, the intentment and the objective of the sponsors will be carried out to the latter in a way that conforms consistent with the Constitution of the Republic.
Very well. Let's leave it here for now. Thank you so much. Honourable Sam Nate George is MP for Ningo Pram Pram and a proponent of the LGBTQI bill currently before the House of Parliament. This is Eyewitness News on 97.3 Citi FM. What else do you have for us, Akosua?
Yes, the Takrade Harbour Circuit Court A, presided over by His Worship Michael Kojo Ampedu, has today fined a fake kidnapped pregnant woman 7,200 Ghana cedis for her second count of publication of false news. Joseph Penny Mensah was found guilty of a misdemeanor for publication of false news, liable to 600 counts, which is 3-year imprisonment, but escaped the prison term as she is currently pregnant. However, on her charge of deceiving a public officer, Josephine was acquitted and discharged since the court says her deceit was directed at the husband, who is not a public official. She has 14 days to pay the fine. Meanwhile, her lawyer, Prince Philip Fifi Bakman, was not in court as the judge read his judgment.
Eyewitness News. Be there as it happens.